Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the CAYP, which is the Congolese Action Youth Platform. We are today going to be talking about the mapping report. 10 years on today, really. It's been 10 years since it's been published. And this report has actually listed 617 of the most serious violation of human rights and international humanitarian laws by both state and non-state actors in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So the reason we are here today really is to try and find out what it means for us as a nation, as Congolese, what we can expect through the mapping report, and whether anything is going to actually help to improve the situation in the country. Like I said, my name is Carol and I'm part of the CAYP, and we are joined today with Sly Mido, who's also part of the CAYP, and we also have some people on the panel who are going to try and go through the report with us and answer our questions, and they will also introduce themselves so you have an idea of their role as well in our community. Thank you, Sly. I'm passing it on to you.
Welcome. Yes, so as Carol said, we are part of the Congolese Action Youth Platform, and our aim with everything that we do is to try to bring awareness about the various issues that are happening in the Congo. And at the moment, the mapping report, the call for exhuming the mapping report and implementing some of the recommendations that was launched by the Dr. Mukwege is the current talk in the Congolese community. And for that, we wanted to invite a panel of guests that will help us today learn a bit more about it and understand this better. So I will start with, I'll ask our guests to introduce themselves. So amongst the guests, I'm going to list them first. We have Kambale Musavuli, who's an analyst at the Congo Center of Research. We have Mama Kongosi Musanzi, who's the Vice Chair of Common Cause UK. We have Mama Marie-Claire Farey from Common Cause UK as well. And we have Papa Ben Musanzi, who's the leader of the Bradford Center of Conflict. Thank you very much for being with us today, guys. So, can you all hear me, first of all? Can you all say hello so that we show that we...
Hello.
Hello, I hope that you are all well. So, so that we start, I would just like to ask the first question to Mr. Kambale. So would you please give, first of all, a quick introduction to those who may not know who you are and what you do about who you are as a person? And then after that, I'll ask my next question. So would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Definitely. My name is Kambale Musavuli. I'm an African born in the Congo. Work for the Center for Research on the Congo at the moment, focusing on researching the work of Kwame Nkrumah and his impact on the African continent and how we could enact some of the ideas and plans that he had while he was the head of state here in Ghana. I've worked for a few decades with Friends of the Congo as the spokesperson of Friends of the Congo, and I'm a Congolese who want to see peace and justice and human dignity in my lifetime so that we all can go back home, rebuild the country to be the beacon of hope and transformation on the African continent.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Mama Marie-Claire Farey, if possible, to do the same as well. Introduce yourself and Common Cause.
Yes, hello, my name is Marie-Claire Farey. I live in the UK. Actually, I live between the UK and the DRC. I'm a Secretary General of Common Cause UK, which is a platform of Congolese women here in the UK. We've been operating since 2006. And I'm also a member of the Women International League for Peace and Freedom. And we have been working intensively with women in the Congo, not only in Kinshasa, but in North Kivu, South Kivu, Ituri, Bunia particularly. So we have written extensive reports on gender-based violence and gender-based sexual violence and applied for Congolese women for peace. I'm actually a research scientist in infectious disease and gender.
Thank you. And Mama Kongosi and Papa Ben, would you like to introduce yourself, please? Your mic is on mute. Would you please unmute your mic? We cannot hear you at the moment because your mic is muted. If you could unmute your microphone, please. If you click on the microphone.
There we are. We are peacemakers from DR Congo. We are a couple, and we set up a peace organization, Conflict Resolution Center in the Congo more than 2 decades ago during Mobutu regime. And for that, we became a target. So now we have been in the UK since 19 years, where we have settled in, and where we have also the UK version of CRC based in Bradford.
Thank you very much.
Maybe Mama Congo can add.
We do go often in the Congo, working with the people in Ituri, that is Bunia, and we have another office in Beni. So we do travel often to help people in Beni and in Ituri. And as a woman, I work often with the women who have faced rejection and who have suffered sexual abuse during the Congo War.
Thank you very much. So now that we know who everybody is, let's dive into the matter of the subject, the reason why we're here today, which is to talk about the mapping report. So the first question I would like to say, 10 years since the mapping report was published, most Congolese still do not know exactly or understand what the mapping report is. Kambale, would you be able to tell us a bit in a nutshell what the mapping report is?
I will also let Mama Marie-Claire also add a bit on it. It's a report that was published in 2010 after a lot of mobilization and resources, but I think she's best placed to lay out the history given the work that she's done.
Thank you, Kambale. So first of all, I would like to start by saying that the Congo has been at war. There's a humanitarian crisis ongoing since 1993. And so that means almost 28 years now. And there has been a lot of human rights abuse. One of the main one was actually the right to peace. The right to peace, as peace is a human right. And so that is one of the most important abuse of human rights that has been committed in the Congo for over 28 years now. So in 2005, actually, the UN has discovered, because as you must know that there's the biggest peacekeeping mission is in the Congo since 1999, because the Congo, because of the humanitarian crisis, the UN Security Council has mandate a peacekeeping mission. So in 2005, that peacekeeping mission discovered mass grave in North Kivu. That's actually triggered them to mandate how can I say, for the UN to commission another investigation on what has been happening in the Congo for many, many years. So that mass grave has triggered them, because in 1997, 1999, there was an investigation already on the crimes that were committed in the Congo. So the United Nations High Commissioner on Human Rights asked a mandate from the UN Security Council to undertake another investigation. And that investigation has got the Secretary General approval. So they had the term of reference that was sent to the DRC government, and they wanted to investigate the most serious violation, the specific act of violation, and also to look at the justice system in the DRC and try to see how the they can bring to justice all those who have committed the crime in the Congo. And as you might know, that during these 28 years, there has been a lot that has happened in the Congo. We've had, first of all, between 1993 and 1996 in the Congo, the failure of the democratization process, and there was a regional crisis with the Rwandan genocide and the influx of refugees in the Congo under the UN Security Council Operation Turquoise. The Operation Turquoise actually brought in a lot of refugees that were fleeing the massacre, the genocide that happened in Rwanda in 1994. This Operation Turquoise is a UN Security Council mandate. So under the UN Security Council mission, it was very important for them to investigate what type of crime was committed in the DRC. It was not the Congolese who asked for that Operation Turquoise. It was an operation that was mandated by the UN Security Council. So there was a lot of killing that has happened. And so the report in itself is investigating 4 key periods in the DRC. So as I said, from March to 1993 to 1996, the failure of the democratization process, the regional crisis, and then you have another period from 1996 to 1998, the first Congo War. As you know, Congo was invaded by 4 different countries, Rwanda, Uganda, Burundian. We also have army from Zimbabwe. So there is also another period that has been investigated in that report from 1998 to 2001, which investigate the Second War, because in between 1993 and 1996, we had some forces that would call themselves the IFDL, the Force Alliance for that came with Laurent Désiré Kabila. They committed a lot of crimes in the Congo. So that report is also looking at the Alliance of Democratic Forces of Liberation of Congo, led by Laurent Kabila, under the impulsion of the Rwanda and Uganda. So they committed a lot of crime when they were entering the Congo. So the report is also investigating the period of August 1998 to January 2001, when the Congo was fractured, because when Laurent Kabila separated from some of its alliance members, the Congo had a second war. So there was a lot of crime that were also committed, particularly against civilians and also against the refugee that came with this influx when they opened the corridor under the UN Security Council Operation Turquoise. And then the 4th period that was investigated was between January 2001 and June 2003. This was during the transition period. That means all these belligerents, all those rebel groups that took up arms, they went through a transitional period where after Laurent Kabila died, his son came into power. There was a lot of rebellion in the Congo. It was a transition period, and a lot of atrocity were also committed. So basically that report is investigating all those acts of violence and serious violation. They actually have found that there was 617 incidents, violent incidents that breach international humanitarian law and human rights abuse.
Thank you for explaining to us what the mapping report is and some of the serious violation that it contains on the DRC. Now, in Common Cause, you're working a lot with things like gender-based violence. And my next question was, can you tell us a bit more about some of those crimes that happened between 1993 and 2003, and report that show how gender-based violence was used in DRC in particular?
Under national and international laws, because there are legal framework, such as various conventions that have been signed by member state of the United Nations, the crimes that were committed in the DRC between 1993 to 2003, as stated in the report, but as still ongoing up to this day, are the following. There's crimes of genocide that breach actually the Genocide Convention. There's war crime that were committed that breach law of war and Geneva Convention. There's crimes against humanity that breach all the international human rights laws, and there are serious human rights abuse that were committed under national laws. And if we look at the crime of genocide, you can look at the attacks that were made. There are attacks against civilian population, attacks against refugees, Hutu refugees that came under that United Nations Security Council resolution, Operation Turquoise, as we saw a lot of the warring fraction coming from Uganda, Rwanda, and all the other belligerent, killing civilian, killing people according to their ethnicity, or crimes committed against women and sexual violence, and all the crime committed against children. And also there were crime and acts of violence linked to natural resources exploitation. And this is very important to mention because a lot of multinational corporations, not only those dealing in mining, those dealing in timber, those using our fauna and things such as culture. You know, there's a lot of resources in the Congo, not only coffee, we have things such as product that is used to make tonics, you know, so all those natural resources exploitation, there's acts of violence that are linked to them because a lot of the people were used as slaves to mine or to for the agriculture of things like coffee plants. So there's a lot of acts of violence that were used in that terms. And then you have some of those acts of violence include sexual and gender-based violence. And there I'm going straight away in your third question on how sexual and gender-based violence has been used in the DRC. The gender and sexual violence were not only used against women, but men also were targeted. Actually, the sexual violence were used as a tool of war, as a tool of intimidation, as a tool of displacement, as a tool of humiliation to displace people from their land. So we have sexual violence as an instrument of terror, sexual violence as an instrument of subjugation, of dehumanization of community, sexual slavery, sexual violence committed as on the basis of ethnicity, particularly in case of women of particular tribe. We have the Tuareg population, which is called the Mbuti, the pejoratively called the Pygmy, that was specifically also targeted. And we also have sexual violence committed in the nature of ritual practice and other sexual violence committed in terms of inflicting population with HIV, destroying women reproductive organs. So we have all these type of sexual violences committed. And I'm going to pass on to Mama Kongozi to explain a little bit more on the different type of sexual violence that were committed in different parts of the country. Mama Kongozi.
Thank you. I'm going to just briefly talk about how sexual violence was used in the Congo. And before starting, I would really quote an African proverb, which says, when two elephants fight, it's grass that suffer. In war or violent conflict situation, women are grasses. Women's bodies are suffering from the conflict. Women's bodies become battleground where militias combatants, soldiers, whoever come to throw their anger, pleasure, to destroy women's body and to humiliate the entire population. Since 1996, sexual violence and abuse against girls, women, and even children have been and continue to be committed on a large scale in DRC until Congo was considered as the worst place for a woman to be. And also, Congo was considered as the capital of rape. What a shame for us as Congolese women. I'm gonna talk about different aspects of sexual violence committed in the Congo. The first one is sexual violence as an instrument of terror. I would add, as I wrote my dissertation, and in my dissertation, I said violence against women as an instrument of war. And inside, I even said violence against women, sexual violence is really an instrument of mass destruction, as it destroys the body, the body of woman, and psychologically, a woman is destroyed. Her mind, her emotion, everything is really destroyed. And the kind of rape used in the Congo was gang rape, systematic rape, destroying the body and leaving the lady with what we call in medical a fistula. Fistula is a lady we start leaking urine and having bad smell all over the body. Public rape, that is horrible when women were raped in front of their family member, even in front of their children. Sometimes using even a child, a young boy, to rape the family members. In some cases, they were doing what we call genital mutilation and forced rape to spread HIV/AIDS. And in some cases, they were able to do desemboweling in case of women, pregnant women, using machete to open the womb of the lady after being raped and throw the baby away. That is horrible thing which was happening in the Congo. And I can give the typical case of women in Mwenga, that is in South Kivu, where women were raped.
Excuse me. I know because we are a bit short of time, I'm going to have to cut it short because you only have about 30 minutes, and I wanted to give very short and brief example. And I also want to allow Kambale to please have a say in what is going on. Yeah. So thank you for giving us one of the examples of some of the atrocity of gender-based violence happening in the DRC Congo that have been depicted in the mapping report. I want to move now to the next question, which is 10 years since the mapping report was published. There seems to be nothing that has been done. Now, I do wonder if this is a question that has to do with Congolese authorities, with the international community, or are there other factors that explains why there'll be a report there known to the public that's been investigated, recognized, that document all the atrocity which are quite very severe, if I may use the term, and nothing is being done, nothing at all. Kambale, would you be able to give us your insight on why 10 years on, we still have to rally behind the Dr. Mukwege to make this happen?
First, the report is political. I mean, and let's not frame it from 10 years before a report was published. Now, Mama Marie-Claire just shared with us that in 1997, right, there were massacres. And then during these massacres, a report was published, right? The Garreton report, commissioned by the United Nations at the time. And it was actually blocked by the United States, the US ambassador to the UN at the time, for the release of that report. So already back then, the United Nations as an institution, and particularly nations on the Security Council, the United States and the United Kingdom, have pretty much said to the world that impunity in the Congo, starting in 1997, was the word of the day, right? So that's where it started. And since 1997, there have been numerous reports published by Congolese themselves, right? And other international institutions. There have been a UN group of experts publishing year after year the different violations taking place in the DRC, the pilfering of resources. But the mapping exercise report is very particular. Right? It combined the many researchers that existed at the time, had for every one of the 617 incidents, at least 5 independent sources to actually prove that this incident occurred, and it didn't, and then particularly touch on the question of crimes of genocide. My sense of it, right, is that the perpetrator of violence in DRC are afraid that justice is coming. Because if you think about it, right, there are nations that have been named in this report. You know, you have Rwanda, you have Uganda, you have Angola, you have Tanzania, you have Zimbabwe. Many nations have been targeted in this. But there is only one nation that's very afraid of this report, and that is Rwanda, because they've been implicated in the genocide in DRC. The other element in terms of this report that we need to also look at outside of the international realm of why this report is not published. This is my hope for every Congolese. Every one of us needs to read this report. It cannot be a myth. It cannot be a document just sitting somewhere that we mention. Because when you read this report, you will notice that it says something about the inter-Congolese dialogue and Article 5 of the inter-Congolese dialogue. Can you imagine that in April of 2002, Congolese at the inter-Congolese dialogue called for an international tribunal for Congo? That's 2002. And it is included in the report. The second element, which is fascinating to me when I read this report, is that in 2003, let me actually say correctly, and I hope Le Barbu de Kingakati is watching. On 24th of September of 2003, Joseph Kabila spoke at the United Nations. This is what he said. On the international level, we believe that the major objective is the establishment, with the assistance of the United Nations, of an international criminal tribunal for the DRC to deal with crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, including rape used as a weapon of war, and mass violation of human rights. This is a direct quote from Joseph Kabila on Wednesday, 24th of September, 2003, where himself willingly went to the UN podium at the General Assembly and said that DRC needs an international tribunal. So if in 2003, Kabila said himself, before the UN mapping exercise report, himself said that we need an international tribunal for Congo, and he had to wait till 2010, he still has not pronounced himself from that. He's no longer president of the DRC, and we still do not have the implementations of the recommendation of the United Nations, the UN mapping exercise report. So at the international level, there is impunity. At the regional level, there is impunity. And at the local level, there is impunity. This is why since 1997 to now, we continue to find mass graves in DRC. This is why at the last election, we have Congolese who've been massacred in Yumbi. And it's now a story that nobody is talking about. This is why young Congolese in 2015 were buried in mass graves in Maluku after the January uprising that we call the Telema uprising. So the impunity is at 3 levels: local, regional, and international. So it is up to Congolese themselves to look at this report and say, we have elements that we ourselves have said since 2002 at the Inter-Congolese dialogue. We have fought for justice. We had allies who heard our cries in 2005 when they found 3 other mass graves in North Kivu. And Kofi Annan says, let's go in and investigate this, and publish a seminal report of 617 incidents that every Congolese has to study, understand, and be able to look at the recommendations, say that the justice will happen when we ourselves engage in making sure that happens. Because at international level, some of those who are pushing for it not to happen are the perpetrator of violence. And I demonstrated that. Joseph Kabila calling for an international tribunal for Congo at the UN, he himself has not done anything for the past 2 decades.
So as you've explained, there is 3 levels really of how can I say, of complacency or indifference. So we have an international level, which is at the UN. We have a regional level, which are the countries that are involved in the conflict. And we have a national level, which is in Congo itself and our government. And you say that Joseph Kabila himself in 2003 actually asked for an international tribunal for the Congo at the UN. Madame Marie-Claire, do you want to add any bits to this, to know why we are still 10 years on having to have this conversation, or would someone from Common Cause add something?
I think Papa Ben will be answering this question better, but I just want to say what Kambale has said, that Joseph Kabila himself welcomed the investigation on the mapping report. I mean, if you look at, when you read the mapping report, you look at, there was a term of reference, he agreed on that, and this term of reference has actually a United Nations Security Council mandate. When this is a mandate from the United Nations Security Council, and the term of reference was presented by the UN High Commissioner on Human Rights. So that means Joseph Kabila himself knows exactly what he's accountable for in terms of this report. It was launched with his permission, and it was received. Once the report was ready, it was also received, and all the regional member who are involved in committing crime or during the war are also involved, have also received a copy of that report. So I'm just going to pass on to Papa Ben to answer the next question about 10 years on. Why do we think there's still no justice?
Votre micro, Papa Ben, your mic.
Merci, merci. Thank you. I think this is the major question for this debate, I think, honestly, because in all international gatherings, in New York, in Geneva, in Nairobi, Nairobi is where is based the headquarters for regional UN for Africa. The same question has been asked again and again. Why has the UN wasted time, energy, and even money to produce all these huge documents, and then at the end of the day, put it in their file cabinet? I think for me, the main reason to respond to this question, why, we can find about 4 or 5 responses here. The first one is, this is an economic war. We never forget that. The Congo has been, since Congo Leopold II up to today, Congo, whatever situation in the Congo is economic situation. The Congo war is an economic war where all the actors or players are economically profiting from the war. It's not a civil war. Many people have said the Congo war is a civil war, how savage Congolese people are, they are killing each other. No, it's an economic war. I repeat that. Really, it's a high level business. The DRC is led, by the way, let me tell you if you don't know, the DRC is led by multinationals. You find businesses, high level businesses like Katanga businesses, many of them, we don't have time to quote them. These are people leading the Congo. As Congo said in my dissertation, I said also the same thing. I made research nearly 20 years ago, and what I discovered is still happening there today. In the First African World War, the main reason I discovered was shocking, that this was an economic war. And the only difference here is that this is a quick profit-making business, because people are becoming rich overnight. Just look at the people who are leading today, who yesterday were poor, but today leading the country. It's a quick business-making business.
Is that from the mineral trade, from arm trade, or any particular business mode? Is that you're saying that this is a quick, it's an economic war, and where people are coming rich overnight? So I wanted to know what's the main drive. Is that a drug trade? Is that economical? Is that weapon trafficking? What are some of the key?
The main product is the minerals. I compare the Congo to the Congo war is like a football game where you have players, those who are playing, there are those who are watching, all of them, those who are observers from the stadium and from worldwide. And in the middle, all this game is around the ball. And in the case of the Congo war, the ball is the box of minerals. I don't know why God put all this stuff in the Congo. You find cobalt, diamond, gold, oil now in Lake Albert. You know, and without counting, without talking about the cobalt, Congo is known as the first producer in the world. And cobalt means tomorrow another war will come to the Congo, because now in the West, people are talking about electric cars. Electric cars means the batteries from the cobalt, and this means another wave of Congo war. So it's really sad what is happening there. That's the only difference. The second thing I could say is that all these acts of violence Mama Kongosi mentioned are committed against just because of that. In Pristina, in Kosovo, I found another reason. I was invited to talk about the Congo situation, and a guy from the public stood up during Q&A, question and answer, and asked me, Ben, do you think Congo will be in peace? I was shocked because he destroyed everything I said. I found that it was a trick question. I said, what do you think? He said, never. Why never? And he said, the answer he gave was, how, the reason is Congo is so rich. How can a rich man be in peace? That is another reason. So Congo war will never be in peace unless otherwise, unless, as Kambale said, unless we Congolese, we take seriously in our hands the responsibility of the future of our country. So to conclude at that point, I can say, how can you expect the recommendation of the report to be implemented when names mentioned in the report are current leaders in the Congo? They are in the Senate, they are in the parliament, some are ministers, and just forget it. It's unless otherwise, nobody, and I say also, everybody, including the UN troops themselves, they are profiting from this box of minerals I was talking about. That is the main reason for me.
Okay.
So,
So really, yeah, Papa Ben answered this question really greatly and in depth. So that's quite, educated, and we see a lot of things in there. So in view of that, because yes, one of the questions was, what are the roots of the conflict? It is an economic war. So how do you settle such a thing? And as you said yourself, the UN themselves are profiting from that. So having a tribunal, International Criminal Tribunal, would that really make a difference for us, as we know that other people are benefiting from everything that we have? Will they really be fair and really hear the cries of our people? Because really and truly, they also have their own benefits, their own things that they're looking for through that. So it's really kind of sad. How do we go about really making a change and have some hope for the future?
I think Kambale is the one who would respond to that question.
Okay.
But before Kambale, I may just say that there are many things suggested here and there for the resolution of this situation in the Congo. But regarding the mapping report itself, the solution is in the hands of the main actors, who are the UN Security Council, and also the partners of the UK, of the DRC, including, for example, EU, US, UK, and so they have to end supporting people out there, supporting those who are making themselves dictator with the help of the West. That is unless the UN change, unless the West change the way they see Congo, nothing will change, honestly. So that is the first thing I could say before Kambale responds. The second thing I could say is that our leaders need to become responsible themselves, to be aware of the disaster. The country is collapsing, and as long as they are corrupted, nothing will happen. What horrible thing, by the way, what horrible thing to keep saying, I'm okay while you are in intensive care and dying. And that is the situation of the Congo. We keep saying that we are okay while we are dying.
So we need more accountability from the leadership. Kambale, do you want to give us your comment and response to?
Yeah, I mean, the analogy I will use is I'll use the Western example, right? Being in winter without a house, and you have a plan to build a house. And then understanding the difficulty of that, you say, you know what, let's not build the house. I'm gonna stay in the cold. That's how I look at the process of justice in DRC, right? The UN mapping exercise report has given us a framework, right? They have suggested examples of how we could do it. The essence of it was the creation of a hybrid court, multiple ways of doing that. There is a special court that can be created like the one in Sierra Leone. There can be a mixed chamber court with international and local judges. And then there can be within a court that's within Congolese government institution. What I've seen in the past decade is that many of the civil society organizations have moved toward the mixed chambers, right? International and local judges. It's going to be difficult. I mean, we saw the International Tribunal for Rwanda. It was really a victor's tribunal where the Kagame regime was not tried and the crimes that they committed there. But there are things, speaking with lawyers who participated in the court, that they said that in our process of creating a tribunal, be it whichever one will work, at least I'm more inclined to go toward a mixed chambers with international and local. And I am clear that if this process is not led or watched or challenged by the civil society on the ground, we will not get even a semblance of justice. That's clear. Our engagement will determine what the court will do. but speaking with these lawyers, as I mentioned, what they shared with me was that the International Tribunal for Rwanda is closed now. And they have so much archive, right? And there is a push right now to get these the archive of that tribunal to go to Kigali, since the court is now over, and then the documentation needs to be transferred to Rwanda for that. And they are worried that if the archives goes to Rwanda, they will tamper. And there is a lot of evidence in the archive of the International Tribunal for Rwanda that can be used for the Tribunal for Congo. So even in our process of creating the tribunal, we have to also think about what happened to the archive of the former tribunal. Can that be supported? Because it's the conflict in the Congo is a regional one that affects Rwanda, that affects Uganda, that affects Burundi, that even affects South Sudan and Central African Republic, that any information around the region can be accessible. Why also there is also a discussion of having that tribunal inside of DRC. The reason being is having it also on the ground, right, allows the people who have been affected by these crimes to actually participate in the process. But the disaster will be if it's on the ground and they participate in that process, and in the end of the process, it's a sham tribunal that will also destroy the will of the people. But I'm from the perspective that we must push for international tribunal for Congo. We also must push for international actors to be held accountable. We must push for not just individuals, but also corporations to be held accountable for the crimes they committed. And it will require, as I said, the engagement of the people. It will require a strong government. In the interim, we are the ones who are going to determine justice for the DRC.
Just wanted to kind of ask you to explain some of the terms, because you've talked about a lot of things. You've talked about the International Tribunal for Congo. You talked about the impact, so to speak, the decision of what happened in the aftermath of Rwanda will have in bringing justice in Congo if you're not able to secure those documents at the moment before they get transferred in Rwanda. But I want to ask you to take a step back a bit and explain to people, what is an international tribunal? What's the difference between that and the normal tribunals that we have, for example? You know, because we're hearing this term a lot, and not everybody is familiar with it. I certainly wasn't until very recently. And what are kind of the pros and cons, if there is such thing as a con, or the pitfall that might be if that solution is not chosen, or that formatting is not chosen? Would you be able to kind of break that down a bit?
Yeah. Well, we've had legal expertise and with my knowledge of the political landscape. International tribunal is usually created for local issues whenever the people on the ground are not able to receive some form of justice. It serves almost as an arbitration space, right, where local issues cannot be addressed in full impartiality. And these tribunals have existed. For example, there was the Nuremberg trial for the right after World War II, right? That tried the Nazi officers. There have been tribunal for Yugoslavia. There have been one for Rwanda. There have been special courts like the one in Sierra Leone. The one that most people don't speak about is the tribunal that was created for Chad, the one that tried Habré of Chad, right? This was a court that many observers actually appreciated, because this was an African court led by Africans to try an African leader. So there was not that backlash of, like, the ICC usually tries African leaders and they don't try like the crimes of Israel and Palestine territory or the United States, for example, right? So when I presented, when the expert, the investigator of the UN mapping exercise were on the ground, they heard from many different people. And understanding the judicial system in the DRC, they proposed, based on what they saw and what people share, that there is a need to have because of the challenges of the judicial system in the DRC, a court that will either be semi-independent or completely independent from the judicial process. Why am I saying this? I'll give you a very small example, and that's also kind of bring up what has happened with the International Criminal Court at the ICC. This past week, I was watching TV5, I think, and I was surprised to see Germain Katanga in Ituri speaking in Congolese military uniform as an envoy of the Congolese government to negotiate with the Codeco rebel group. So I'm scratching my head, right? And Liana said, wait a minute, how did Germain Katanga end up there? So I'm looking back into the information. Well, he was found guilty, right? He was sentenced. His his term in jail was transferred to the Makala prison in Kinshasa. While in Kinshasa, I heard that he was in a VIP pavilion. No, he was receiving visitors and so on. And right now, he's not in prison. And you don't have to believe me. You just have to watch that interview. That is actually the envoy of the Congolese government to go negotiate. So when you see processes like this, those are the things that we Congolese have to worry about when we create this tribunal. Will it be a tribunal completely dependent on Western nations, where they can tell us, well, we found Jean-Pierre Mbemba guilty, we found Germain Katanga guilty, or Bosco Tanganda, whenever his case is found guilty, and then they get 10-year sentence commuted to Congo. 5 years later, they are playing tennis in Goma with UN peacekeepers. Is that what we really want to see? Or we want to make sure that in this process, we are the one determining the terms. So that's where the special, the mixed chambers come in, a court with Congolese judges and international judges, but led by the people, by the civil society. That's what's going to be critical, because the voice of the people is not necessarily what actually guarantees justice at the ICC, right? It's really, if you think even about the model of the International Criminal Court, it's the UN Security Council, and even how cases get there, right? It's not the voice of the people that matters at the ICC. There are three ways that cases get at the ICC. One is a recommendation of the UN Security Council. Two, a member of the Rome Treaty, a nation that signed the Rome Treaty, so which means governments, right? And three, at the discretion of the prosecutor. So if the prosecutor believes that your case is important, he or she can bring it up to the court. So where is the fourth? The people themselves want this case happen. It doesn't exist at the ICC. So in us building this tribunal, that's what we have to watch out for. And there is a larger push of having a hybrid court with a mixed chamber with local and international judges led by the Congolese people themselves.
So having spoken about all of that, I want to turn to Mama Marie-France and Common Cause and say, you know, with all of this happening and all of the dangers and pitfalls that we may have to get justice, all the challenges that we have in getting justice for Congo. Is there anything else that we can do as a people that can be done in the meanwhile to get some form of justice, to kind of at least end impunity in the DRC? What are some of the key action that maybe can be taken already now, should be taken now by the current government or by the people to end impunity, at least, to bring some sort of peace and stability in Congo?
As I started by introducing, I say that peace is a human right. And on the 21st of September, we celebrated Peace Day. Peace means everything. You need peace just to exist. And I think Kambale has summed up on what we as Congolese, we need to do. We have a will to have peace as civilian, as population. A lot of us are abroad today because the country is not stable. And but unfortunately, what we are seeing is that there is a lack of political will at the international level, because no matter what we do, the country is very big, and people are, how can I say, are actually, how can I say it? They have been dehumanized, and they don't have that power to stop people from coming and dehumanizing them. What we have now is we have each other, we have to speak out. We should not let, we should break the silence, because what we're doing, we have been breaking the silence for so many years. There's been the campaign with Friend of the Congo about breaking the silence. I have been myself involved in talking about the Congo since 2001, you know, since 2001. Even before Common Cause as an organization or WILF, we have been able to raise the voices of Congolese women. I've traveled to Mwenga, to Kiwanja in Rutshuru. I've traveled to Bukavu, Goma, South Kivu, even to the border with Uganda, just to hear the plight of the Congolese. All they're asking is they want peace to be able to develop themselves. And we need human development, because without any human development, we cannot develop our environment. And what we need is basically to continue to speak out and not to stop our will for peace being undermined by those who are profiting. I think we are talking a lot about the mines in Congo. The natural resource is not just the mine. Everybody today is drinking gin and tonic. Nobody knows that thinks that gin tonic is made with quinine, you know, a plant that is have hundred of hectares in the Congo. This is also a natural resource that is creating war in Congo. Today we hear that people who have been killed in Beni, the killing is linked to the seasonal harvesting of cocoa, you know. How many people can link cocoa harvesting to the killing of people in Beni, you know? So we need to keep on speaking. We cannot remain silent, because at the moment, as the international community, there's the UN, I kept on talking about the UN Security Council, because there's been so many reports, as Kambale said. The first report that I read on the Congo on all these crimes were written by Congolese themselves. They were written by Congolese, even before Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, or the CRC wrote the report. Congolese themselves wrote report. We had the center Olame in Bukavu. That was the first center that started talking about sexual violence, extreme rape, extreme use of violence in raping the women. If we remain silent about what is going on, then we will be complacent. We will be complacent. And at the moment, we have a government that is in place there, also in breach of our own constitution. No matter what we say, if we as Congolese are complacent of injustice and accepting whatever injustice, breach of our constitution, breach of our local law, once the local law and national law are being breached, then the international law will even be more breached. So it's up to us now as civilians, whether we are in the diaspora, whether we are in Congo, all Congolese should stop this cycle of illegitimacy. This circle of is a vicious circle of tolerance of crime, because there's a lot of Congolese who are also involved in helping those criminals. You know, we break the silence. We stop this cycle of illegitimacy and injustice. Then, at our own level, once we start breaking that, nobody will come and submit it to this crime and this type of injustice.
So we need to be vocal and take an active action, so to speak, in terms of seeking for justice. Thank you all for coming today and helping us talk about this very complex subject. There is a lot to be said, but we are running out of time and we have to end. But before we go, I wanted to speak to Mama Kongosi. We believe in our platform in letting women have more say in Congolese matter. And I did not get the opportunity to hear a lot from you as an elder. And I want to give you the opportunity to kind of wrap up today's show by giving a message as a person, as a Congolese woman, as an elder to our current generation and the future generation of Congo. What do you want us to do? Have you got any word of encouragement or any message that you'd like to leave to our people in regard to this matter?
The message I would like to give to young generation and also to all Congolese people is, we as women, we just need peace. Without peace, sexual violence will continue. We need security. We are not protected. With the number 20,000 UN peacekeepers, MONUSCO in the Congo, we are killed in few meters from where they're based. We are not protected by them, by MONUSCO. We are not protected even by our own forces. So we need protection and we need justice. Lastly, I should add, we need to help our people not to be manipulated. If you see what is happening in Ituri, in North Kivu, people like Codeco being able to take the whole people in hostage. Where are they getting brand new gun from? If we are still being manipulated, then we'll not be in peace at all. That is the message I want to let to every people to know.
Thank you very much for speaking to us and leaving us with this beautiful message. I want to thank all of our guests for coming in today, for helping us have this chat. This is very important and very complex topic. We hope that we'll be able to have you guys again to discuss further and on this topic and other topics that I'm sure will be coming in the following weeks and months as the situation is changing in the Congo. We here in the Congolese Action Youth Platform want to use our platform to help bring about this change, to help raise awareness about what is going on in the DRC. And one of our aim for this year is to start now using our online platform to help raise awareness, educate, and bring information to the Congolese and friends of Congo, who are many who would like to learn more and educate themselves and find out a bit more about the Congo. And I also want to take this opportunity to tell all of those who may want to be involved in working with us or helping raise awareness about the Congo, that we are here. We have our Gender Cause page on Facebook, a Gender Cause campaign that we've been leading that aims for the campaign for the recognition of the genocide in the Congo. You can contact us there or on our social media, on Twitter, on Instagram. We are present, and we are going to be more available, publishing more video with more guests to raise more awareness about what is happening in the Congo and make sure that we do our part to be bringing justice to all those who've been affected by this conflict. Thank you all, everybody, and I want to wish you all a pleasant weekend.